Welcome everybody. Thank you for participating on the webinar for today with the title We Have Been Entrusted as the Caretakers and Stewards of Planet Earth. First, I'm going to address about the housekeeping. So like all your mic will be muted and those who give email address will receive the recording of this webinar, or you can check in ISNA website. And if you have any questions, please type your question on the chat box. Okay, so let us start. First, I'm going to introduce this webinar is presented by the Green Masjid Task Force. So as Muslim, we have special responsibility to take care of our environment, and Islam initiated this action to voice this about this stewardship through the formation of the Green Masjid Task Force by the Masjid Committee last year. And so to create awareness and provide guidance to make our masajid across the nation environmentally friendly and our practice more sustainable. And Alhamdulillah, we are very fortunate that we have the task force consisting of qualified and dedicated and committed team, and always be ready to help everyone in greening your masjid or Islamic center. Currently, we have 6 members on our task force. Dr. Said Masrusa is our chairperson, and Dr. Ihsan Bagbi, Sister Huda Alkaf, Brother Saffet Catovic, and Sister Uzma Mirza, and myself, Nana Firman. And last year, we started with our Green Ramadan campaign that we launched nationally, and we had about 30 plus masajid and Islamic center participating. And during the ISNA annual convention in Chicago last year in September, we launched our Green Masjid project booklet. So you all can check that out in ISNA website. And so why are we having this webinar today? A little background. So as we are all aware, April 22nd, last Friday, is known as to commemorate Earth Day. And in fact, part of the week-long set of organized observances and activities across the globe as Earth Week. So there's a lot of formal recognition, affirmation, or celebration of our role as the Khalifa upon this earth, the caretaker of the earth. And if you haven't done so, we encourage you or your masjid and your community organization to participate on this earth-related activity. And also, why we call it Earth Week is because April 29th, we commemorate Arbor Day, which concludes the week-long, usually the week-long of earth caring activities, where people get their hands, really dirty, planting trees or care for the plants, bushes, and so on. So without further ado, I would like to invite 2 of my team members, Brother Saffet Catovic and Sister Uzma Mirza, who will be presenting today. And first, I would invite Brother Saffet.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Sister Nana and Sister Uzma, and pray everyone is well this evening and is safe, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, bless us in this endeavor and make it easy for all of us and increase us in our knowledge and our understanding and our willingness and ability to practice the best of what we hear and what we learn. Let me begin by speaking a little bit about the verses in the Holy Quran, which you see before you on the slide. And we'll recite some and reflect on them briefly with you. And then, inshallah, this will hopefully set the stage for the rest of the conversation because, as we are told in our religion, khayru kalam kalam Allah, the best of speech is the speech of Allah. So let us begin with the verses that are mentioned. Um, the Quran refers to aman, or trust, that we as human beings took on upon our creation. And that was a trust that was actually not first offered to us as human beings. It was first offered to the heavens, the samawat, wal ard, wal jibal, and then to the earth, and then to the mountains. It seems with their intelligence, viewing and understanding the awesome responsibility of this trust to be caretakers and responsible for the earth and all that is contained therein. They um, did not accept that responsibility, but humans stepped up to the plate and accepted the responsibility. And there is a remark at the end of the verse that they either are zaluman or jahula, which means the humans are um, unjust to themselves or just foolish in taking of this responsibility. You see, the carrying out of the trust means that it has to be done in a just way, adl, and it has to be effective. It has to have ihsan, administration of all that which has been placed under our control and for the use, which in Arabic is taskhir, not for misuse or abuse, in our multifaceted role as Khalifa. We are the guardians of the trust, and there is a high degree of freedom accompanying the responsibility and accountability in the use and misuse of this trust. Amana not only encompasses the web of human relations, but extends outward in ever concentric circles to include all within the natural world, the alam. Scientists tell us that there are over 4,000 distinctive, and I don't know if I lost here. There are over 4,000 distinctive environmental communities or ecological communities. And human beings' participation in intervention, actions or inactions, has the ability to control and manipulate these communities. The term Khalifa literally means successor, those who succeed, other generations who became for us, as we will be succeeded by the generations who will come after us. It is in this context that we can understand the dua of the Safar, or the traveler, when we say wa khalifatu fil ahl, as a reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our Khalifa, or the caretaker and guardian of our family in our absence as we travel. We should know that the term Khalifa, the scholars of Quran tell us, is mentioned 9 times in the Holy Quran. It is mentioned 9 times in the Holy Quran, in various contexts and in numerous places in the Hadith as well. It is not a political term, as it has come to be understood in the modern era, but more an earth-based connected term, often referring to divinely delegated role and function of human beings. And this is important to note. It's not just Muslims who are the Khalifatul Ard, but it is all human beings. The role of Khalifa includes at least 3 aspects, beautifully summarized by the Turkish Kurdish scholar of the early part of the last century, Sayyid Bediüzzaman Nursi, who said it encompasses the role of duties of reflection and worship, which consist of tasks as studying and pondering the natural world and observing acts of creation on one hand, and consciously proclaiming God's unity, Tawheed, in the realm of multiplicity, heralding in the Asma al-Husna, the divine names, and exhibiting the Creator's art within the world. Secondly, it is the vicegerency. It is the sense of being a temporal manager, and that does not mean owner of the earth, but a manager who has been given the authority and power over creatures, or delegated the authority and power over creatures and gathering them around oneself, having been entrusted with the regulation of all vegetal and animal life upon earth. We must take care that they are cared for so that we ourselves may be cared for. For what affects the earth and its inhabitants affects humanity as well. And thirdly, as a cultivator and developer of the earth, just as man has authority over beings and the ability to order them and to utilize them according to certain needs and wishes, so too he has the capacity to develop the sciences and the arts and development of agriculture without disrupting the divine order and balance through negative, what is referred to in the literature as anthropogenic activities. In the Quran, it's referred to as fasad, corruption of the earth, the aidin nas, by the hands of humans, or what the hands of humans have wrought. That balance or mizan we speak of was set up and put in place by the Creator from the very beginning, being placed in position being placed in this position of awesome responsibility is not a birthright, but rather it is a function and a role that we need to affirm again and again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says in the next surah or the next ayah that is referenced, وَالسَّمَاءِ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانَ. In the translation you see before you, and that is that he has set up the balance in order that you may not transgress the due balance. So establish weight and just and fall not short in the balance. Allah mentions in the Holy Quran, and science attests to the fact that there has been a balance that is set within the universe. The very presence of life within the universe is reliant upon a large number of extremely improbable events. And even the slightest alteration would make it impossible for life to exist as we know. Everything from the energy state of the electron to the exact level of a weak nuclear force seems to be tailored for us to exist. We appear to live in a universe dependent on several independent variables, where only a slight change will render it inhospitable for any form of carbon-based life, including our own. The universe is all interconnected and set by its creator from the inception in a delicate balance mizan. We must carefully and wisely maintain that balance and reset it and restore it as it has already been disrupted by negative human intervention in the world. Mizan in this ayah is contrasted with the term al-wazan, which means to measure, that everything has a distinct measurement. And the term mizan, we are told by the scholars of tafsir, appears in 23 other verses, 23 other times in the Holy Quran. It is interesting to note that many contrast the term mizan with the term israf, which means waste or transgression, because it is in fact through waste and through this type of transgression that the balance is disrupted and we are placing ourselves and others in existential danger. Most of the commentators interpret mizan to mean justice, to set the balance. That implies that Allah has established the entire system of the universe on justice. And here enters the idea of the concept of eco-justice into this discussion. Had there been no harmony and balance and justice established among countless stars, planets moving in space, the mighty forces working in this universe, and the innumerable creatures and things found there, this life on earth would not have functioned even for a moment. Our responsibility then as human beings and as Khalifa and caretakers of the planet is to reset the balance, to restore the natural order, and thereby fulfill the amana, the awesome trust which has been given to us. Now a brief word on Sibghatullah, which is mentioned in the next verse. And that is our life takes its hue or its color from God. This is also a way of understanding the religion of Islam itself. But here I would like to focus on the color green, akhdar. For this is no longer just a color and a noun, it is now a symbol of ecology and sustainability. It in fact has become a verb. Since the beginning of time, the color green has signified growth, rebirth, and fertility. In many Muslim countries, it is a holy color. There are numerous mentions and references to green, akhdar, in the Quran and in the Sunnah, often associating it with prosperity and good life in this dunya, as well as one of the favorite colors of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. It is also linked in the Akhirah to the idea of the clothing of the people of Jannah, and it should be noted that the dome or the kuba of our Masjid Nabawi, of our Prophet's mosque in Medina, has been painted green dating back to the year 1253. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, Inna dunya hilwatul qadara, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَتَخْلِفَكُمْ فِيهَا فَيَنْظُرْ كَيْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ فَاتَّقُوا الدُّنْيَا. The world is verdant, sweet, and green, and verily Allah has placed you as khulafa in that place, as caretakers of it, to see how you act. So take care of this world. Take care of your responsibilities to this world. Sister Uzma often reminds us that green in the visible color spectrum is the color that appears in the middle. I don't know if you remember from grade school the mnemonic Roy G. Biv: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. G is its dead center. It is symbolic of Ummatul Wasta, the middle nation, the nation of moderation and not of extremes. That is the designation of our Ummah, of our faith community, and adopting the prophetic practices of conservation and practices which lessen our impact on the earth through reducing wanton consumption and such types of behaviors will in turn reduce waste, and the result will be beginning to reset the balance which we so need to do. Thank you.
So I would like to invite Sister Uzma to address more like how can we um, how do we implement such ayat and hadith and the principles from Islam in our everyday life, especially in like commemorating, celebrating the Earth Day and Arbor Day. So please, I would like to invite Sister Uzma. And before that, please forgive me, I forgot to introduce that Brother Saffet is um is an imam and also the founder of Green Muslim of New Jersey. And Sister Usma is an architect, and she's a green architect. So please, Sister Usma.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Brother Safed. That was wonderful. And thank you, Sister Nana, for your introduction. And I just want to just go back to that other slide with the hand for just a second. And one of the things that Brother Safed touched upon was that concept that we are the middle nation as Muslims, and the color green is the middle color. And that there's a reason for it. There's a reason why we can be helping hands to preserve our earth as Khalifas and the Khalifas of this planet. And I think that comes as in the likeness of how the Prophet practiced, that we have to sometimes do things, and we have to do it without judgmentalism either, but we do it within our principles and do what is right and focus on what is right. Okay. So how can we, and what are the steps to being green? How can we achieve that middle color? That color that is green, that's soothing, that the Prophet ﷺ loved, that people of the middle path loved. One is plant a garden, produce a community garden. Everyone in each of our communities, we have a larger and extended community. We need to not just plant gardens and plant community gardens within our own community of the masjids and improve our masjid environment, but also the extended community through interfaith, to live amongst others, amongst Muslims and non-Muslims, and to show and display, to exemplify and reflect the names of Allah, which means that gardening, planting trees, planting things in the earth to grow, rebirth is an essence. It's a core value that we share as people under the auspices and under the aegis of a creator, God. And I wanted to also touch on, we talked about masjids and the Green Masjid Task Force that, and the work that it is doing as the ISNA Green Masjid Task Force, that when we plant items as a community garden or gardens or plants and planting trees, we should look at the landscape around our masjids and around our home. And the masjid obviously is an extension of our home. It's an extension creating the collectivity. So we have our personal and we have our collective. And in that collective, we need to reflect that sense that planting trees around our masjids, having areas of reflection, growing your own food. And you can do this in a townhouse. You can do this in your balcony. So one of the things I would like to encourage is if you're planting trees, and if you can't plant a tree with whatever organization or however you do this, plant a plant called basil. And I thank you to Brother Saffet with a wonderful reminder that the plant basil is mentioned in Surah Waqia. It is a plant that was loved by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is also mentioned of the people, it is also talked about as a metaphor that it is such a beautiful plant and the Prophet loved it, but it's also bitter. In other words, it's about walking our talk and practicing what we preach and practicing what we learn. Brother Saffet, maybe you can touch on a few items further on the basil that I have. I said it eloquently, more so than I did.
I think you handle it just fine, sister.
Yeah, okay, thanks. But
if I may interject, I would just like to, the scholars of the Quran tell us that the term shajar appears in the Holy Quran 26 times, and the term nabat, which means plant, appears 26 times. So the Quran actually speaks about 54 varieties of plants and trees that are mentioned in the Holy Quran, some of them multiple times, as we know, and one of them is the basil.
And I think also in Surah Ibrahim 14, verses 24, 25, and 26, it speaks of, and not only in the Quran, but all Abrahamic faiths, of the tree, planting the tree, sowing your seeds, sowing it far and wide. And it's a symbol and a metaphor of a goodly human, of speaking goodly words, planting trees. When you have a tree with firm roots, meaning you know your faith, you know your religion, you create prolific fruit. You create a sustainable human, one who knows the earth, who is a caretaker. But if you create a tree, again a metaphor, and this is from the Quran, of evil words, it's an evil tree, the symbol of a person with evil words, where the tree flows left and right, it gets unrooted, it goes where the winds go. Whereas a firm tree, it sways with the wind and flows, but it stays firm. That is a Muslim. That is a steward. That is growing. So planting a tree, be it a basil, be it an actual tree, I encourage everyone in their masjids, in their communities, and to do interfaith, to extend yourself out to the people in your communities through planting. So another way, again, I touched on, grow your own food, grow your own vegetables, the earth, just putting your hand in the earth. There's something about the nutrients, the act of planting. It is part of our nature. We were born to love this plant. We were born as caretakers. And it reduces carbon emissions, reduces the carbon footprint. There are no GMOs, no preservatives, no pesticides. I don't know how many of you know that most of the foods we eat today, unless you're making it yourself, has preservatives, even the vegetables and fruit. Many places in California, they have rocket fuel in the water table. This is not even spoken about, that the Defense Department and what they are doing with with all their waste and different industries. If you grow your own food, it's more organic. You save cost on growing your own food, save cost on transportation, and the most important thing is it teaches thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and gives one patience and disciplines the soul. Just the act of, I'm sure many of you who have gardened, the act of gardening is very therapeutic. Myself, I love landscaping, and I'm a gardener myself, and it is one of the most meditative, in addition to prayer, that one can do. And you feel good, and you're helping the planet, you're helping the bugs.
Sister Uzma,
another item.
If I might, Sister Uzma,
Oh,
just to
sure.
share one hadith of the Prophet
Sure.
We all enjoy, we all desire, and we pray that we make it to Jannah, which is the garden in paradise. And actually, Jannah is mentioned, or gardens are mentioned over 146 times in the Holy
Mm.
Quran. But one of the hadith speaks about the farmer, that the farmer makes it to heaven, and when he's in heaven and with all the blessings and all the rewards and all of the wonderful things that we receive there, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can you give me some seeds so I can plant them again? And because it is the heavenly realm, as soon as he receives the seeds and he puts them into the grounds of the heaven, they immediately sprout up and become full trees. And he's a little bit sad and saying, I wanted to see them grow and be able to take care of them. I know this is heaven. And so the farmer who is already in heaven has the desire to plant the seeds. And I think that you pointed out that connection to the land and the earth is something that we need to reconnect with.
Absolutely. It's an intrinsic value. And I think sowing those seeds, hence the children we make in this world and we produce and the progeny goes far and wide, it is so important you plant good seeds with goodly words. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes that. And that hadith, as you eloquently stated, Brother Saffet. One thing I would like to point out about gardening and growing your own food, whatever your locality is, please make sure of what they require, meaning, in other words, if something is recyclable and biodegradable. Things that are labeled biodegradable, a recycling plant will not take them. They will only accept recycling material, and biodegradable products will go to a landfill. So this defeats the purpose of recycling and biodegradable products. However, buying biodegradable is better than recycling. So make sure when you are buying products, if you do, ideal would be not to buy anything, use real things. But if you do, biodegradable is better than recycling, and make sure you have a plant. And it's usually called an industrial composting facility. It has higher temperatures, and it's the only way you can compost or biodegrade your items if you have access to that. Recycling plants, again, will not take composting or biodegradable items. If you do it in your backyard, perfect. You grow your own vegetables, perfect. If you use animal manure, and which has to go through a process, of course, it's considered a hazardous waste, you can use that in your soils as well, as long as it's not for public consumption. Another step, consume from sustainable farming or organic eco-halal farming. This is something that is a very important topic, and it's a growing area. We have created an industry of farming in this world that we have 4 or 5 plants, and it's run by corporations. And we have a lot of, as some of you know, maybe all of you know, are GMOs, genetically modified organisms. The focus of today's topic is not the GMOs, but the fact is you don't want GMOs. You want to do sustainable practice of farming. You want to grow your own food. Food and farming in the 2030, there's a sustainability agenda up to 2030. There's a reason for, there's a target. It is a target year. I don't think I have time to go into it, but you can read what is written. But if we can create farming without all the pesticides and do it naturally, kind of like our great-great-grandfathers used to, that is ideal. And there are a lot of people who are starting to do that. Now, eco-halal farming, you'll say, well, halal is eco. Well, it's not. A lot of times they say, Allahu Akbar, cut. No, next. The animal may be mistreated. Islamically, when you slaughter an animal, the animal should not have pain. Though slaughtering, yes, there must be some sort of pain. But it should be usually circular, not linear. The Industrial Revolution, which started 200-300 years ago in England, created, and Mr. Ford and the Model T and the Industrial Assembly Line actually is one of the greatest destructive forces in society. The concept of mass production. It is not only in products, it's in food, and hence to GMOs, hence to every food that we eat. Hence, we have now sustainable farming that a small group of people have decided to take things on their own hand and create now an industry that is growing of people saying, no, to these big corporations, and it's good. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does say, not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that whoever kills a sparrow or anything bigger than that without a just cause, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold him accountable on the Day of Judgment. In other words, anything we do, I don't love cockroaches and I don't love spiders, but the reality is they're creations of Allah, and we will be answerable for every living thing we kill. And in the end, He is our judge and He knows our intention. But the point is, again, consuming from sustainable farming and doing eco halal. So when you do halal, try and find out that it's green, or how the animal was fed, how the animal was slaughtered. Saying Allahu Akbar meaning halal means all of these things, meaning how it was killed, what it was fed, how it was raised, was it in pain, what kind of pain, was it mutilation, was it mass assembly, was it linear, was it, in other words, you want it circular so one animal doesn't see the killing of another animal. I don't know how many of you know that. One animal should not see the murder of another animal, and know that because I think we don't realize that animals do have some sort of a brain. They do see that something is going to happen. And that pain is what you're trying to alleviate. Hence, when you say halal, is it really halal? By just saying Allahu Akbar on a radio, which many Muslim countries do, and they eat. Is that really halal? I don't know. I don't think so. So,
Sister,
another is permaculture.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Saffet here. I don't mind to interject.
Sure.
But one of the things that people could try to plug into is the idea of CSAs and become partners in local community-supported agricultural. A lot of them try to incorporate principles of sustainable farming as well as permaculture agriculture. So even though some of them are run by Muslims, some of them are run by non-Muslim, but if you have difficulty with gardening yourself, it's a good place to start to plug into local CSAs as partners, and usually they provide ways in which you can volunteer hours and you can actually go out and learn various types of sustainable farming practices. So it's something for people who are not yet ready maybe to move fully into the gardening experience, and they feel that there's too much to know and to learn about. They can plug into a CSA, and then CSA will provide time where volunteers can come out and participate in various parts of the process so they can begin to familiarize themselves with the entire planting process, and it doesn't seem something that is so large and scary to deal with.
Can you define CSA so everyone can understand when you say CSA?
Yeah, community supported agriculture. Basically, they work on community providing partnerships through financial contributions at the beginning of the season. And then it's not a donation, and you get a share of the crops that are raised on that farm. At the same time, they provide other ways in which you can interact with the farm, both plant life as well as animal life. And the other thing, just to mention that when we're speaking about the issues of halal, the tie in the Quran is the two words. The emphasis, I think, has been within the Muslim community has been on halal to the exclusion of tayyib. And tayyib, through the word tayyib, enters in a lot of what Sister Uzma you've been speaking about with regard to the way in which the animal is fed and cared for, etc. That is the wholesomeness of the animal. Halal has to do with the permissibility of the animal and the issues of slaughter. So I think we need to re-emphasize in our embrace of the halal, the tayyib, which is linked in the Quran together. Those two words are linked, but they are not. They have become disconnected in our actual practices.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think that word when you said disconnected is extremely potent. And I think as Muslims, we are disconnected from reality by just doing ritual practices without sometimes understanding why we're doing it. I think, and I'm not generalizing, and there are exceptions. And hence we are here as a task force trying to evoke those exceptions and realities. So another step is permaculture design. I won't touch too much on it, but basically what is permaculture? As stated, is a creative design process of systems of agriculture and social design principles centered around simulating or mimicking the patterns and features observed in the natural ecosystems of the site. It is about whole systems thinking of the site. Now, basically, it's designing with the entire site in mind, meaning every bug, every migration of birds, every living creature has its life. You live around that life, and you create an ecosystem as a human being based on your design in balance with the balance of all creation. It is difficult in today's world because we live in a grid. We are not, because hence that competition of between Tesla and Edison. Edison won. We created a grid. Tesla was all about sustainable electricity, sustainable energy of self-sustainment. We got rid of that and we created, that's how we have the corporate thinking of, it is actually a capitalist thinking of collectivity. It's actually a fallacy. And hence we've done that to nature. We have, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, of which we are its caretakers, we have made it a product, and at the same time made ourselves a product, and forgotten that we are in this rental space, of which is our bodies. So permaculture is something, you know, sometimes you look at, for example, in ISNA, New York, outside of Berkeley, what's the Cornell, they have a eco-village. And it's kind of what non-Muslims, many eco-villages all over the East Coast are doing. Not 100%, but they're trying in their best way. It is very difficult, but I think there are great examples. If you can go to some of these eco-villages, they're trying to create a permacultural design, but it's not perfect. So having said that, we can discuss further. If people are already living in one, that would be fantastic. Another item or step that I think is really important and has been important for Muslims is that in Islam, the Islamic gardening, tree planting, back to the earth has always been an essential feature of Islamic architecture. It's a place of reflection and rest. The traveler, like Ibn Battuta and many travelers who travel the world, whenever they would come to the garden was an oasis or a place of rest and abode. In a way, it was a reflection of paradise. The garden was always the place in this earth of paradise, of what is to come, of Jannah. Hence, the garden has always been, not was, or not maybe, has always been an essential feature of Islamic architecture, especially in the desert regions. From the heat of the sun, it became like a shade under a tree. So the garden should be, planting trees should be part of every masjid in this country. Now, yes, we live in a cold climate, but we can work around that. We can create gardens in a different way. You can have rock gardens. You can have we have green gardens, and they work with the seasons. So it doesn't matter where you live and where your abode is. Gardens have always been that, and I think that emphasis is really, really important as Muslims. We need to be, if we're going to be caretakers, we need to also reflect leadership as Muslims, that we care for all living creatures. And yes, it's not an easy task, but I think the fact we're doing this, the fact we have ISNAs doing this, the fact that everyone there has been evoked this consciousness, I think we're going somewhere, and I think inshallah, and I think it's good. I think it's green, and I won't dwell too much further on this. Another item, one of the steps you could do talking about the garden is a roof garden, or it's also called a green roof. Now, in our cities, it's nothing but steel and concrete. And what they're now implementing or trying to implement, and one of the largest green roofs for healthy cities is actually based in Toronto, Canada. And it has affected and influenced all the people all over North America, the movement, and the studies they're doing. But primarily, if your masjid can afford it, yes, it will be twice as much in cost, a roof garden. However, the benefits you reap from that, you're planting trees, you're planting a garden, you're reducing your heating and cooling loads. You're actually looking at things in a life cycle cost, not initial cost. So I encourage you in your masjids, in your communities, in your homes, to do some sort of a roof garden if the community can afford it, because it will reduce your costs over a long period of time, but hence the life cycle cost, especially if you are in the city. In a city, the temperature can be at least 20 degrees hotter because of the salt, because of the steel and concrete. And you want that same temperature as if you're in the rural area. So they started putting roof gardens, and roof gardens with solar panels as well reduce those loads. You can reduce heating and cooling loads up to 26%. And cost, and I won't go into the cost because cost varies per site. But there are two types of roof gardens. One thing is, what's the difference between a roof garden and a green roof? Green roofs meaning white, light color, high albedo, meaning it reflects. A garden is also a green roof, but a garden goes further. You have an intensive and extensive. Intensive is the type that you mow. The soil is usually 6 inches to a foot. It's heavy, structure's heavy. It is more expensive. The most common is the type that is the least maintenance. They come in a 4x8, up below 5 inches, little containments, and you place them on your flat roof, and you let it go and maintain it maybe once a year. And again, they reduce your heating loads. Meaning the sun reflects the heat, and you also create a wonderful ecosystem. You reduce the heat island effect. So, and also it reduces the ozone concentration is decreased. Temperature is decreased, which we know with our climate issues, and I know Sister Nana can talk for a lot on the climate aspect of things. It would be a wonderful implementation. And of course, one of the most important things we've been talking about is planting a tree. How do you plant a tree? Well, I've never planted a tree. And we talked about how in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the tree. It's not difficult. Everyone, I encourage you, Ramadan is coming. You need to grow something. And we talked about you need to grow. If it's not a tree, grow a plant, a basil. You can do it in your house. You can do it in your backyard. And you can have it at your shade if you don't have a balcony, the shade of your window, or if you have some sort of a small balcony. Doesn't require much. One of the things that's coming up, obviously, we have Earth Week and Arbor Day is coming up April 29th. Again, Arbor Day in different states happens at different times. Again, these are just norms that have been created into weeks, because the way schedules work, how things happen, every university and organization has different times. So I think ISNA is taking that initiative to have work with Arbor Day of April 29th and work with Earth Day, and in that time frame have our Earth Week. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has said, if the resurrection were established upon one of you, while he has a seed, and in his hand a seed, then let him plant it. There is none amongst the Muslims who plants a tree or sows seeds, and then a bird or a person or an animal eats from it, but is regarded as a charitable gift for him. In other words, anything we plant, even if that's why this is sadaqah jariyas, scholarships, planting trees, animals eat from it. We don't give enough importance to that when someone dies and they've planted trees and birds are benefiting from that, that is sadaqah jariyah for you. It's not just making a scholarship fund and building a masjid. Planting trees is a huge, very prolific act of being a caretaker.
Sister Uzma, if I may interject.
Oh, did I keep going? Am I supposed to?
No, can I just interject for 1 second on the
Go
tree
ahead.
issue?
Sure.
SubhanAllah, the idea of the tree is Allah has placed us in a symbiotic relationship with the tree. What the tree, if it says that all life, Allah says, and this is confirmed by science, it has its origins in water and needs water to survive. While that is true, the energy of life in this planet for all living things comes from the sun. But we as human beings and the rest of the land life and animal life do not have the ability to access that energy directly. So it is through our brothers and sisters, you can say, our fellow believers, the trees, who are able to access that energy through the process of photosynthesis and to convert that into usable carbohydrates and sugars that we then can use to access the energy of the sun and give us life and existence. And a byproduct of that, of course, is the oxygen that is released into the environment, as well as water vapor that allows us to breathe.
Correct.
That which we exhale is the carbon dioxide, which the plants then are able to take and to utilize in the process of photosynthesis. We are in a symbiotic relationship with the tree. And as the tree lives and exists and is strong, so too will we be strong. It is said that a single tree, if planted well and grows to its full maturity, will be able to provide oxygen for a family of 4 on this planet for a year. So we need to say, I'd like to provide that oxygen which I breathe and take for granted, and which my great grandparents and others have allowed me to have through the planting of trees to the generations that come. This will also ameliorate the effects that we see of climate change, which I think Sister Nana might talk a little bit about, and the carbon emissions that are taking place within the air as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a reason why, again, back on the color green, chlorophyll. So when you have photosynthesis, there is a reason why the energy is tapped into it. So when you are actually producing and planting a tree, yes, you are giving oxygen. That whole concept of transpiration occurs, photosynthesis occurs. And hence why, as you mentioned, the tree is so important. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses it as a metaphor of sowing seeds, of establishing ourselves as trees. I think, I think the emphasis is not given enough of planting trees, of planting, and the importance of it. And one other thing is, we build our homes out of wood. Technically, Yasin, in the last few verses, even it talks about fire from the green tree. It talks about, there's a reason why that's there as well. It gives you energy, and that has layers and layers of what comes out of that. And technically, we're not allowed to just cut a tree. We technically should be asking Allah, I'm cutting this tree because I'm providing shelter for my family. But we don't do that. We mass produce and cut trees. Hence, for example, I know in Canada in the summer times, people would go up into the mountains. There's this process called tree planting, and students would plant trees. I think it's a great idea of summer jobs, of planting trees, because we have taken away so many. Now, Muslims need to be active in that. This is primarily being done by non-Muslims. We need to be those caretakers as well. I think I missed one slide in that composting. One of the most important things is composting.
Excuse me, Sister Uzma, we need to move along faster because we're running out of time. So
okay, so composting, I think it speaks very clearly. Grow your food, plant it, grow it, take your garbage, put it into a bin in your backyard, or you compost it in an industrial plant, your food, and you can actually grow carrots from it and eat it. So there's this composting life cycle that's created. You're recreating soil and putting it back. So there's constant recycling, and in a way, it's going back to the tree, and the way we are to I don't know how many of you know that the planet Earth has not just like the hydrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, the water cycle, of which, yes, the sun is a constancy in all of that. And these cycles, hence, life cycle costs. That's why when you look at anything, green garden roofs, composting, don't look at initial costs. Look at life cycle costs. Life cycle costs is how we are made, how we act in the cycles of nature, in the cycles that have been given to us and we're part of. So just talking about ISNA Green Masjid and Green Ramadan campaign, last year, the ISNA Green Masjid Task Force partnered with the Pen and Inkpot Foundation, who provided tree saplings by the Arbor Day Foundation as gifts to all the masjids and Islamic centers who participated in the ISNA Green Ramadan campaign. They are the ISNA Green Pioneers. And mashallah, we had 37 masjids participate, and we hope you will consider being part of this year's upcoming ISNA Green Ramadan campaign, which will be the next webinar on the ISNA Green Ramadan campaign. I think Sister Nana.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Sister Uzma. And so like this year we have a very very special Earth Day celebration, which is like International Mother Earth Days, as it's being called internationally. It's coincide with the day of the signing of Paris Agreement last Friday on April 22nd in the United Nations headquarters. For those of you who's not aware of what is Paris Agreement, it is an agreement internationally on the framework how we reduce the greenhouse gas emission from climate change through mitigation, adaptation, and finance starting in 2020. And there were 196 countries agreed upon that in Paris last December, and last Friday 175 countries signed the agreement. That was a historical moment in the United Nations, because that never happened that many countries sign an agreement in one day. So this year theme is focused on tree planting with the aim of mobilizing nearly 8 billion plantings. So basically it means every man, every woman, every child, which um, that will be alive by 2020 to plant at least one tree. And the link of this is very clear, because like has been mentioned that forests will be our key allies to combat with climate change and meeting our long-term goal on restoring the ecological balance of our planet Earth, that we hope very soon, at least in the half of the century. And as trees and forests are very crucial for assisting also effort that Sister Uzma mentioned about the Sustainable Development Goal, giving their role as absorbing the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere and cleaning and cooling the air, as Sister Uzma also already mentioned, and acting as natural water pumps to sustain our river flows and stabilizing our soil, and also recycling our nutrients for agriculture and supporting habitats for wildlife, and it's a which is a gift for humanity. So again, let's start to plant a tree or a plant now. Let's do it before Ramadan. At least you plant one tree or one plant. Take it off, Sister Uzma.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Sister Nana. I think that it's extremely important, and I think one of the things you mentioned about the rooting of the tree. A lot of our floods, for example, in Japan, they had some floods, is because they clear cut all the trees out. There's a purpose of trees. They control erosion. They stop floods. They stop the water from flowing down from the mountains. I mean, the benefits of that one plant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made is immense. And I think Brother Saffet touched on it. We as a group are touching on it, and I think we are emphasizing plant a tree, if not a tree, plant a basil. We encourage you, because the Prophet ﷺ loved the basil. So what, again, emphasizing what are we? The Green Masjid project was a project that the Green Masjid Task Force has been focusing on with the Green Ramadan campaign, and we created a brochure last year. Please do visit it. We encourage you. Yes, some people may say, well, I've been doing this for 20 years, 30 years. Well, yes, but as a platform, I think it's important that it is a voice of Muslims and not just individuals. I mean, I can say I've been doing this for 20 years, but as a group, I think ISNA has been wonderful in creating that platform. No matter when or how it happens, and I think it's timely. And I think it's important to support it, and we hope you will be part of this Green Masjid Ramadan program that's coming up. And one of the last hadith, I think many of you already know this, is the whole earth has been made a mosque, masjid for us. And so let's make a pledge to care for the planet. Let's be Khalifas, let's be stewards and caretakers. And technically, a masjid, the earth, nature, that is a masjid. That is a masjid. And we are hurting that masjid.
So thank you, Sister Uzma, Brother Saffet, for all that wonderful information and lesson to all of us. And we have only 5 minutes before we have to end this webinar. I wonder if we have any questions from the audience. So somebody asked question. Could you please share with us where this hadith location about the farmer? So, this is from Emily. Actually, I know her. So probably we can answer that. Brother Safi, would you like to answer that, or like we can actually like send through email or something?
Yeah, inshallah, I will try to send out the information through email. Unfortunately, I don't have that paper right now in front of me, but I think it
Okay.
was from the Musnad of Imam Ahmed. But when they send out the webinar recording, inshallah, we will include links to resources and including the hadith that were mentioned, as well as slides that might not have been on the actual PowerPoint. We will include them as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the audience? If not, maybe I can ask Sister Uzma about. I have this question from somebody about composting in the apartment. If you live in an apartment, how do we do like composting?
You can actually get they have kits that you can get and you can compost it, your material, or just I don't know. Do you have a garburator in your house or not? Collect it in a bag. Some people actually grind it and put it into a garburator, and then it dissolves away. If you grind it, you could possibly, if it's only for personal consumption, you could probably put it back into your plantings, but I don't recommend that if it's in the house. Because it's a hazardous waste for collective consumption. But they do have these bins that come, like if they're these electronic machines. I think you can find them, and you can probably compost in your apartment. But generally, the best way is if you can find a garden. Compost it there in someone's garden, or bury it in earth. Sometimes I'll take peels, cut them up, and just bury it somewhere in some corner of the earth somewhere.
Yeah.
In a park, perhaps.
Yeah.
I mean, I could. Does that answer? I don't think that answers.
Yeah. I think
I don't have all the
that's
material in front of me.
yeah. That answers the question because well, I do also like bury it sometimes in on soil.
Make sure
If
you
I
grind
don't.
it. Make sure you grind it, because one of the most important thing is soil has aerobic and aerobic bacteria, and when you that's why in New York, for example, when they unearthed in Staten Island 8 mounds of garbage, the hot dogs from 1922 were intact. The newspapers from 1920 were still intact. Why? You need to have that bacteria and that's in the soil between the products. If you just do landfills, which we do right now, like big garbage bags, you see these mounds, that's not composting and that is not degrading. That, and they have these methane gas outlets, that's doing nothing but affecting and hurting our environment. So our landfills, we are going to have a problem in 20, 30 years of garbage and waste everywhere. So hence the bottom line is try to avoid throwing things away and it reaching a landfill.
Right. Yeah.
In bags and plastics. Use plastics when you're shopping. Use your own bag or container. Use paper.
Yeah, Brother Safet, you want to say something?
Yeah, just briefly, because I know we got to close in a minute. There's probably resources in your county that you can plug into. A lot of the counties have
Correct.
composting directors.
Right.
And one of the things that they recommend, and I use this in my own composting, is that it's mixture is very important. Mixture of leaves, mixture of grass, mixture of rinds, coffee grinds, and other types of things. So mix the brown and the green together, and the idea of making sure that you cut it up ahead of time helps to facilitate that as well, which Sister Ozma pointed out about grinding and chopping things up.
Right. Yeah, thank you for all the information and all the sharing and also the lesson. For today, I need to make this announcement for all that the audience here that we are going to have another green webinars next month, inshallah, and we're going to talk about greening our Ramadan because Ramadan is it's coming less than 2 months, and how can we green our Ramadan within our community, within our Islamic centers, within our masajid, and we want to have greener and greener Ramadan, and not producing any garbage during Ramadan, because it's a month of reflection. So again, I thank Sister Uzma and Brother Saffet, and I thank everyone who's been with us here, everybody who's listening to this, and thank you also to ISNA for having this webinar to share on the green messages from Islamic perspective. Thank you and have a nice day. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, Salam.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you.